Working the night shift changes you. There's something about being awake when the rest of the world sleeps, something unnatural about it. The darkness feels heavier, the silence feels louder, and sometimes you see things that make you question everything you thought you knew about reality. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 stories from people who work the night shift, stories that still haunt them to this day. These aren't just scary moments that fade with the morning light. These are experiences that burrow into your mind and never truly leave. So turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't work the night shift alone. This story comes from a guy named Marcus, who worked the overnight shift at a gas station off Route 9 in rural Pennsylvania. It was one of those old stations that somehow survived despite being in the middle of nowhere. The kind of place where you might see 3 customers on a busy night. Marcus took the job during college because the pay was decent and he could study during the quiet hours. His shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and for the first few weeks it was exactly what he expected. Boring, uneventful. The occasional trucker stopping for coffee and cigarettes. But that all changed one night in October. It was around 2:30 in the morning. Marcus was behind the counter reading a textbook when he heard the bell above the door chime. He looked up and saw a woman walk in. She was probably in her mid-30s, wearing a long white nightgown that looked odd. Not like pajamas you'd wear outside, like an actual vintage nightgown, the kind you'd see in an old movie. Feet were bare, dirty, like she'd been walking on gravel for miles. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked, already feeling uncomfortable. The woman didn't respond. She just walked slowly down one of the aisles, her movements stiff and mechanical. Marcus watched her disappear behind the shelves. He waited for her to come back with something to purchase, but minutes passed and she didn't reappear. The store was small. Only 3 aisles. There was nowhere to hide. "Ma'am?" Marcus called out. "We close the aisles for cleaning in a few minutes." He wasn't really closing anything. He just wanted her to come back where he could see her. Something about this woman made his skin crawl. Silence. Marcus stepped out from behind the counter and walked toward the aisle where she'd gone. When he rounded the corner, his heart jumped into his throat. She was standing completely still, facing the wall of motor oil and antifreeze. Not browsing, not moving. Just standing there, her head tilted at an unnatural angle. "Ma'am, are you okay?" That's when she turned around. Her eyes were completely white. No pupils, no iris. Just white, like hard-boiled eggs. And she was smiling, this wide, stretched smile that showed too many teeth. "Do you have a phone?" she whispered, her voice raspy and dry. Yeah, there's a payphone outside." "No," she interrupted, taking a step closer. "Your phone, I need to make a call." Marcus backed up. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run, but he was trying to stay professional, trying to convince himself this was just some woman having a mental health crisis. I can't give you my personal phone, but like I said, there's a payphone." She took another step forward, then another. Her movements were jerky, like a puppet being pulled by strings. "I need to call my children," she said, her voice getting louder. "I need to tell them I'm coming home. I need to tell them Mommy's coming home." Marcus's hand found the pepper spray he kept in his pocket, against company policy, but he'd always kept it anyway. "Ma'am, you need to leave. Now?" Her smile grew wider. Impossibly wide. "But I am home." Then she screamed. Not a normal scream, a piercing, inhuman shriek that made Marcus's ears ring. He pulled out the pepper spray and aimed it at her, but before he could press down, she turned and ran toward the back of the store. Not walked, ran, on all 4s, like an animal. Marcus stood frozen, his entire body shaking. He heard a crash from the back room, the employee bathroom. Then, nothing. He should have called the police right then. He knows that now. But instead, he grabbed a tire iron from the automotive section and slowly approached the bathroom. The door was open, hanging off one hinge like it had been kicked in. The bathroom was empty. The small window above the toilet was open, screen torn out. But that window was barely 12 inches wide. No adult could fit through it. Marcus checked anyway. He looked outside, tire iron raised, expecting her to jump out at him from the shadows. Nothing. just the empty parking lot and the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He called the police. They came out, took a report, searched the property. They found nothing. No footprints, no sign of forced entry. The officer who took his statement kept giving him skeptical looks, like Marcus was wasting their time. But Marcus knows what he saw, and he never forgot what she said. "I am home." A week later, Marcus was talking to Jerry, the day shift manager, about what happened. Jerry got quiet for a long moment, then went to his office and came back with an old newspaper article, printed out and yellowed with age. The article was from 1987. It was about a woman named Catherine Walsh, who had lived in a house that used to stand where the gas station now stood. She'd had a breakdown one night and drowned her 2 children in the bathtub before disappearing into the woods. They found her body 3 days later, hanging from a tree about half a mile from the house. The article included a photo of Catherine Walsh. She was wearing a white nightgown, the same nightgown Marcus had seen. Marcus quit 2 days later. He doesn't care that people think he made it up or hallucinated. He knows what he saw, and sometimes, late at night, he still wonders, what if she's still there, still walking those aisles, still looking for a way to call her children, still trying to come home? This next story comes from a woman named Lisa, who worked as a nurse at a large hospital in Ohio. Specifically, she worked in the records department in the basement, a job that required someone to be there overnight to process paperwork and handle any emergency records requests. Lisa didn't mind the isolation. She was a naturally quiet person, and the basement was peaceful. Just her, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and rows upon rows of filing cabinets stretching back into the dimly lit storage areas. The basement was old. The hospital had been built in the 1940s, and while the upper floors had been renovated countless times, the basement remained largely untouched. Old tile floors, exposed pipes, that distinctive smell of old paper and industrial cleaner. Lisa's desk was positioned near the entrance, close to the elevator. Behind her desk, a long hallway stretched into the darkness, lined with storage rooms and old equipment. She'd been told never to go back there unless absolutely necessary. Outdated filing system, mold concerns, structural issues, the usual bureaucratic reasons. She'd been working the night shift for about 3 months when things started getting strange. It began with sounds, footsteps echoing from the hallway behind her. At first, she assumed it was maintenance or security doing rounds. But when she called out, no one ever answered. The footsteps would just stop. Then came the smell. Every night around 3 a.m., a horrible odor would drift through the basement, rotting meat mixed with something chemical, something medical. It would last for about 15 minutes, then fade away completely. Lisa reported it to her supervisor, who sent maintenance to check. They found nothing. No dead animals, no leaking pipes, nothing that could explain the smell. But the worst part? The filing cabinet. There was one cabinet in particular, labeled Deceased Patients 1950 to 1960, positioned just at the edge of the darkness where the hallway began. Every single night, without fail, Lisa would find it open, just slightly, a few inches. She'd close it, lock it, come back from her break, and it would be open again. This went on for weeks. Lisa tried to rationalize it. Old building, uneven floors, faulty lock mechanism. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. Then came the night she saw him. It was 2:47 a.m. Lisa was processing a stack of admission forms when she heard it. A different sound this time. Not footsteps, whistling. Someone was whistling a tune from deep in the hallway, an old song she half recognized, something from the 50s maybe. Her blood went cold. She was alone in the basement. The elevator required a key card to access, and she had the only one for the night shift. "Hello?" she called out, her voice shaking. "Security?" The whistling stopped. Silence pressed in around her, broken only by the hum of the lights. Then, slowly, she heard footsteps, coming closer, deliberate, unhurried. Lisa stood up, grabbing her phone, ready to call security. That's when she saw him. A man stepped out of the darkness at the far end of the hallway. He was wearing hospital scrubs, old-fashioned ones, the kind they didn't make anymore. They were stained dark brown, like dried blood. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes were sunken deep into his skull. But the worst part was his smile. He was smiling at her, a friendly smile, like they were old acquaintances. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice polite and calm. I seem to be lost. Can you tell me where the surgical wing is? I have a procedure scheduled. Lisa couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Every rational part of her brain was screaming that this wasn't real, that this couldn't be happening. She stammered. Who are you? He tilted his head, confused. Dr. Raymond Hess, I work here. At least, I think I do. He looked down at his stained scrubs, his smile fading. Why am I so dirty? Lisa's hands trembled as she unlocked her phone. I'm calling security. Security? The man looked genuinely confused. Why? Did something happen? You need to leave, now. His expression changed. The confusion melted away, replaced by something else, something cold. I can't leave, he whispered. I tried, I've been trying for so long, but I can't find the door. I can't remember how I got here. He took a step closer, then another. Do you know what happened to me? He asked, his voice cracking. Can you help me remember? Everything's so foggy. I remember the surgery. I remember the patient coding. I remember reaching for the defibrillator and then nothing. Just darkness. Just this hallway, forever. Lisa backed toward the elevator, her hand slamming against the button. Stay away from me. Please, he begged, tears streaming down his gray face. Please help me. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to walk these halls forever. I don't want to. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. Lisa threw herself inside and jammed her finger against the lobby button. As the doors closed, she saw him standing there in the hallway, watching her with those sunken eyes. Please don't leave me here, he whispered. The doors shut. Lisa quit the next morning. She didn't even finish her shift. She took the elevator to the HR office as soon as they opened and submitted her resignation. Out of morbid curiosity, she looked up Dr. Raymond Hess before she left. She found an old hospital memorial page from 1962. Dr. Raymond Hess had been a surgeon at the hospital. He died during a late-night emergency surgery when he accidentally electrocuted himself with a defibrillator. He was 34 years old. The memorial mentioned that his body was temporarily stored in the hospital basement before being transferred to a funeral home. Lisa never went back. She never told anyone the full story except a few close friends who she knew wouldn't judge her. But sometimes, late at night, she thinks about Dr. Hess, still wandering that hallway, still looking for a way out, still asking for help that will never come. The final story comes from a guy named Daniel, who worked night security at a massive warehouse distribution center in Nevada. The building was enormous, nearly 500,000 square feet of concrete, metal shelving, and endless rows of inventory. Daniel's job was simple. Walk the perimeter every hour, monitor the security cameras, and make sure no one broke in. The pay was good, and most nights were quiet. He'd walk his route, check the cameras, and spend the rest of his time watching movies on his phone. The warehouse had been built in 2008, so it wasn't old or historically significant. No tragic past, no ghost stories, just a big, boring building full of office supplies and electronics waiting to be shipped. But about 6 months into the job, Daniel started noticing something odd on the security cameras. There were 16 cameras positioned throughout the warehouse, covering all the major sections. During his rounds, Daniel would check the feed from his phone, making sure everything was clear. That's when he started seeing the figure. At first, he thought it was a glitch, a shadow that appeared on camera 7, which monitored the back left section of the warehouse. The shadow would move across the screen, disappear behind the shelving, and then nothing. Daniel would walk over to that section immediately, but he never found anyone. No signs of entry, no disturbances, nothing. It happened again the next night, same camera, same shadow. This time, Daniel watched it more carefully on the feed. The shadow was definitely human-shaped, walking slowly between the aisles. But here's the thing, it didn't move like a person. It moved smoothly, like it was gliding. No head bob, no natural gait, just smooth. Daniel started keeping a log. The figure appeared almost every night, always on camera 7, always around 3:15 a.m. Always the same slow, gliding movement. He reported it to his supervisor, who reviewed the footage and agreed it was strange. They checked the timestamps, the camera angles, everything. The supervisor even came in one night to see it for himself. Sure enough, 3:15 a.m., the figure appeared. The supervisor watched it on the monitor, then immediately grabbed his flashlight and radio. "Stay here," he told Daniel. "Watch the feed. I'm going in." Daniel watched on his phone as his supervisor appeared on camera 6, approaching the area where the figure had been. He could see his supervisor's flashlight beam sweeping across the aisles. Then his supervisor appeared on camera 7, right where the figure had been just moments before. But on the screen, Daniel could see something his supervisor couldn't. The figure was standing directly behind him. Daniel grabbed his radio. "Behind you! It's right behind you!" His supervisor spun around, flashlight cutting through the darkness. "There's nothing here, Daniel. I don't see anything." But on the camera feed, Daniel could clearly see it. A dark silhouette, impossibly tall, standing less than 3 feet behind his supervisor. It wasn't moving, just standing there, watching. "I'm looking right at it on the camera," Daniel shouted into the radio. "It's right there." His supervisor slowly turned in a circle, his flashlight illuminating nothing but empty aisles and metal shelving. The figure on the screen didn't move, didn't react to the light. It just stood there. "I'm coming back," his supervisor finally said. "This is freaking me out." The moment his supervisor left the aisle, the figure vanished from the camera feed. Just gone. When his supervisor got back to the security office, he was pale, shaking. "I felt it," he said quietly. "I felt something standing behind me, like a cold spot, like the air was heavier." They reviewed the footage together. The figure was clear as day on the recording, standing behind the supervisor, but his supervisor's body camera, which he'd been wearing, showed nothing, just empty space. That's when things escalated. The next night, Daniel was alone again. He'd been dreading 3:15 a.m. all evening. When the time came, he forced himself to watch camera 7. The figure appeared right on schedule, but this time, it was different. It was looking directly at the camera, directly at Daniel. And then it started walking, not gliding, walking, toward the camera, toward the front of the warehouse, toward the security office. Daniel watched in horror as the figure moved from camera 7 to camera 6, then camera 5, each camera picking it up as it walked steadily through the warehouse. It was coming for him. Camera 4, camera 3. Daniel's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He was frozen, watching this thing get closer and closer. Camera 2. The figure was now just one section away from the main floor where the security office was located. Daniel finally found his voice. No. No, no, no. He grabbed his flashlight and his keys, ready to run to his car. But then the figure stopped. On camera 2, it just stopped walking. It stood there for a long moment facing the camera. Then it raised one arm, slowly, deliberately, and pointed directly at the camera, directly at Daniel. The screen went black. Not all the cameras, just camera 2. Complete static. Daniel didn't wait to see what happened next. He ran, sprinted to his car, drove straight home, and called his supervisor from his apartment. He quit over the phone. No 2 weeks' notice, no apology. He was done. The warehouse supervisor tried to convince him to come back, saying they'd investigate, bring in a tech team to check the cameras, maybe even hire a second security guard for the night shift. But Daniel refused. He told his supervisor to check the recordings, check what he'd seen. The next day, his supervisor called him back. His voice was different, quiet, shaken. "Daniel? The recordings from last night are gone, corrupted. Every single camera from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. Just gone. The tech team says it's impossible. The system has redundancies, backups, but everything from that hour is just erased." Daniel didn't respond. "But here's the thing," his supervisor continued. "We found something in the warehouse, in the exact spot where the figure was standing on camera 7. There was a symbol, carved into the concrete, deep, like it had been there for years. But we know it wasn't there before. We would have seen it." "What kind of symbol?" Daniel asked, already regretting the question. "We don't know. We took pictures, sent them to a few people. No one recognizes it. But Daniel, it's not just carved. It's burned, like something impossibly hot pressed into the concrete. The edges are blackened, melted. Daniel hung up. He didn't want to know more, didn't want to think about what could burn a symbol into solid concrete. The warehouse hired a new night security guard. The guy lasted 4 days before he quit, claiming he kept hearing footsteps behind him when he walked his rounds. Footsteps that stopped whenever he stopped, footsteps that had no source. The position has been filled and emptied 6 times in the last year. The warehouse company is offering double the usual pay now. No one stays. Daniel moved to a different state, got a day job in retail. He'll never work a night shift again. But sometimes when he's alone late at night, he thinks about that figure, the way it pointed at him, the way it seemed to know exactly where he was. And he wonders, what would have happened if he'd stayed? What would have happened if he'd waited to see what came next? 3 stories. 3 people who will never look at the night shift the same way. Marcus, who encountered something that shouldn't exist in that gas station. Lisa, who met a doctor still searching for a way out of his eternal rounds. And Daniel, who was hunted by something that exists only on camera feeds and in the corners of your vision. Working the night shift means existing in the space between worlds, between the waking and the sleeping, between the living and the dead. Some things only come out when the sun goes down. Some things only exist in that darkness. And if you're unlucky enough to work the night shift, sometimes those things notice you. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. And remember, if you work the night shift, never ignore the things you see, because they're definitely not ignoring you.